Hi everyone, and thank you for joining us for our latest webinar, Microsoft Dynamics 365 for Assets, Equipment, Transport and Infrastructure. My name is Gareth Boyle, the Marketing Manager for Microsoft here at Fusion 5, and before I hand over to our first speaker, just a couple of quick bits of housekeeping. Our presenters will be up first covering content, and we'll conclude with a brief Q&A at the end of the session. If you do have any questions during the presentation, you can ask via the top right-hand corner of your browser or Teams application, and we'll address it at the end. We'll also share a copy of the presentation after it is concluded. As you would have seen, we're also giving away some Uber Eats vouchers to our first 50 registrations who have attended today. Once I've run a report, I'll be sending those out to you for some lunch on us. And thank you for joining. With that out of the way, let's kick off with our first speaker, Microsoft Country Manager, Christy Brown. Christy.
Kia ora koutou katoa, or g'day, depending on which side of the Pacific you're joining us from today. I'm Christy Brown, as per my wonderful introduction, and I'm here leading up our Microsoft business here in New Zealand. Also born and raised in Australia, so that puts me in a unique position of being bilingual, so it's a privilege to be here today. Look, I just really want to spend a couple of moments setting the scene in terms of why we're here and why does this stuff matter. It's very, very clear that we've all been through a time of incredible disruption as we've been through the pandemic more recently. And certainly we're not here to talk to you about the pandemic today, but what we are here to show you, I guess, is the context in terms of why digital transformation is continuing to evolve and is going to do so at a truly breakneck pace as we move through the coming years. You would think that through the pandemic, we all achieved our digital goals. You know, we went and mobilised frontline workers to some extent. We gave people the ability to access their software outside of the main centre that they work at times. Are we not done yet? The sad news is no, we're not done. We're very, very far from done. And I think what the pandemic has done is really started to catapult us into this stage of where we're changing at a pace with which even us technologists are struggling to keep up. To put it in perspective, McKinsey's telling us that we're going to see 25 to 40% of our tasks that we're performing today automated by the time we hit 2030. Now, that's an incredible amount of people who are needing retrained. Looking at Australia alone, you're talking 3.5 to 6 million people that are going to need to be retrained to be able to embrace this new era that we see ourselves thrust into. So sadly, it's not one and done, team. We're at the stage now where technology, as I say, is going to move at a pace with which we have never seen. It is definitely a new revolution that we're tackling. And so our biggest challenge is, of course, how to embrace this change and how to ensure that our people are keeping up with this pace. Daniel Kahneman is an incredible deep thinker, Nobel Prize winner. He wrote the book Thinking Fast and Slow. And essentially, he tells us that when we're talking about the era of AI with which we're exposed to now, our challenge isn't going to be the technology. The technology is fine. It's going to be our ability to embrace this technology. And we've heard the line said a lot in the partner ecosystem, which is that AI is not going to replace us, but someone working effectively with it will replace us. And that's your competitors. So it is certainly time to consider a data-driven transformation. And as you can see by the stats that I've had lingering on the slide for a little while now, when you are able to take your transformation from a data-driven lens, you are able to achieve some absolutely exponential benefits. And that's what we're here to show you today. So looking at a data-driven transformation, what does that really mean? You know, there's a couple of ways in which you can go about organising a transformation of your business. It'll either be done through a specific lens, looking at a single part of the business, or we're going to try and take something that's looking more end-to-end focus. And that's certainly what we're here to share with you today. So the thinking is that if you can take a end-to-end analysis and optimise your sales business, you have the ability to actually drive far more growth than if you're looking at something exclusive. So a good example of that, I think, is maybe let's talk about producing power adapters. Power adapters continue to evolve over time. My early days, we were looking at USB Type 2. Now we're looking at USB-C, and certainly the new iPhone is all embracing this new USB-C type technology. And it's certainly a far leap and cry ahead of what we've had previously. Now, if we didn't listen to our customers or pay attention to what our supply chain is doing and what the changing ecosystem needs, and we're continually trying to market our USB Type 2 product without innovating in that power bank, what is the future going to hold for our business? Obviously, we're going to pretty quickly become irrelevant. Or if we're looking at service and we want to take a data-driven approach to our service improvements, it's looking at things such as when our assets are failing, are they always failing at a certain time? Is it after a certain amount of hours of usage? Or is it with its environmental conditions will mean that it requires more planned maintenance sooner? By taking the data lens and actually identifying where those hiccups occur consistently in a particular asset, for example, we can start to be a lot more predictive with how we are servicing those products. And we can see some, again, real gains on that bottom line, whether it be operational efficiency or just delivering a delightful customer experience and finding that you then see a lot more customers, for example, procuring things like service of an ongoing basis in an annuity-based model where you're continuously charging for that service. So lots of ways in which you can completely transform looking at data first, and certainly that brings you, I guess, the advantage of the Microsoft stack when we're looking at these products all being interconnected, and that's very much what you will see in the webinar today. So we are thrust into this era of AI, and we're hearing it being banded around everywhere. You know, we are already at risk of this word being overused and of it becoming the new buzzword, which means very little to us in practical terms. So some tips and tricks in terms of getting started. How do you begin? Number one, it's about trying to establish a common understanding of what AI is for you and your business. There are a lot of different terminologies out there, but fundamentally, it's really about machines performing the ability that you would normally only see in the human brain, such as reasoning, learning, applying different factors based on their environment, and that's what we call AI at Fusion 5. The next thing you need to know is your business. You need to have a very good understanding of where you are trying to solve a problem, you know, whether it be where your competitors are moving ahead of you, or is there an opportunity here for a whole new product, such as what I mentioned previously, if you might be able to get maintenance as a service on your key assets, if that's what you're in the business of producing or distributing. Then you need to understand, how can AI help? Now, obviously, one of the big challenges to understanding how AI can help is simply keeping abreast of where your industry is making great use of this technology. And that's where organisations such as Fusion 5 and other, I guess, technology advisors can assist you with keeping abreast of the changes. The one word of caution I will tell you is, please don't think that you can learn once and you're done. You know, the pace of change that we're seeing, I keep saying this, but it truly is of a pace that we have never seen. 30 new Copilots have been announced literally just at Microsoft's last conference held in the last couple of weeks. We sent people there in Seattle. So continuously refresh your understanding. If it's not there today, chances are it will be there tomorrow. So continue to learn. And then finally, avoid that bellbird syndrome. I call it the bellbird syndrome, chasing shiny things. Make sure that if you are going to apply AI to your business's processes, you have a clear problem you're trying to solve. And you're measuring that you're making gains towards that, like any other digital initiative. If it's just a good idea without clear ROI, please don't try and chase that prize, and you will get yourself pretty quickly despondent. So that's my simple tips for success in terms of where to get started. Now, looking at your sector today, look, there is an incredible amount of innovation that is already there and is tried and true. And you're able to quickly find those if you open up and explore what your competitor landscape is doing and what some of these technologists are releasing into the ecosystem today. So AI scheduling and routing is one of the obvious choices. You know, I think if you look at taxis in the US, be it only 5 years ago, there was 200,000 taxi drivers in the US. Now, as soon as Uber came in and completely transformed that model, we now see 3.5 million Uber drivers in the US alone. That doesn't include taxis. So clearly innovation in that sector is rife and has made a transformative difference to the way in which we operate. Knowledge discovery is another brilliant example. There's a great video that Microsoft has in its Copilot blog, which shows where a service agent is able to get the answer to a very complex Azure Kubernetes issue in a matter of seconds. Now, that is literally searching over 9 different databases with thousands and thousands of articles to find the right answer to that very gnarly technical challenge. You can apply that to your industry today. There are wonderful solutions, provided you can contain the knowledge with which that Copilot might be reading, that can actually help you today service your people much faster. As well as product system design, you know, so particularly in the automotive sector, if you're looking at trying to, for example, optimize suspension so that you can get safety and comfort, you can start to provide a number of different parameters into the model and have it come up with an answer much faster than you might see with a human today. today. Likewise with your product performance optimization. Again, it's not that humans can't do this or your data scientists can't. It's just the pace with which we can compute isn't anywhere near what these machines can do now. So definitely something we can give you some smart tools to apply. And then finally, root cause analysis, in that event where we do have a recall, or if we have a safety concern or something similar, being able to very rapidly understand what that root cause was, issue a fix and get it resolved is absolutely critical to your brand, and something that I would certainly be considering within this sector very soon. So when you are applying a data-driven approach to digital transformation, the metrics speak for themselves. I won't go through all of these. I will linger here for just a moment so that you can see some of the very tangible benefits these organisations have applied by taking data first in the lens of their digital transformation. And I'm sure you can agree that any one of these would be compelling in their own organisations. So today we are going to take you through in just a moment or two the entire Microsoft Cloud. We have a number of areas that you'll be seeing today. This is all going to be in real time, and it is a situation where we have every module, if you like, sharing the underlying dataverse data stack. And so what that means is that we don't need to integrate these solutions with very complex technology solutions. We are able to share the common database. And so you'll see that coming through today in some of these demonstrations that we're about to take you through. Fusion 5 as an organisation, I know a number of you are friends of ours, are customers we already know, but for those of you that don't know us, just a very quick overview, elevator pitch if you will. We've been around for about 20 years. We're locally owned still, and we still apply pretty much an all onshore model. So the headcount you can see sits here in Australia and New Zealand. We're about 50-50. We have around about the same amount of Microsoft technologists in either Australia or in New Zealand, and we're across all of your main centres. So we're not far away to being able to provide you with expert assistance. We cover all aspects of the Microsoft stack, so you don't need to have that complexity of one provider blaming another. We can pretty much cover your entire Microsoft ecosystem, and we take immense pride in what we do. So really looking forward to getting to know you soon if we don't know you yet. Now, moving right along, we're about to get into the thick of the presentations today. I really appreciate you sitting through my quick introduction. I know I've been going through a lot of information very fast, but I'm sure you're here to learn about a lot more exciting things than what I'm going to give you in an introduction today. So I'll hand over to my experts very soon. You're going to meet Thomas. Thomas is from an organisation called Dynaway that specialises in providing extensions onto the Dynamics 365 stack that really cater for industry-specific needs in the industry that we're here to focus on today. And so you're going to see Dynaway giving you a little bit of overview around the asset lifecycle management, talking about moving your asset management from chaos to control, where you're able to predict your maintenance, you'll be able to plan ahead, and really, as I said, really control that asset management again for you. So I'll hand over to Thomas very soon. We'll then move into Troy. Now, Troy is going to show you some incredible innovations happening within the Copilot stack. So he's here to, I guess, in a way, reinvent how your field service workers might get through their day, and use technology when considering generative AI as well as how you can create a tailored generative AI experience for your organisation. So some really breaking ground technology being shown in Troy's session, which I'm looking forward to. We'll then hand over to Nate. Nate is here to help you mobilise your workforce in an effective way. So I call it the 3 R's. It's about getting those right skills to the right place at the right time, which in itself sounds like it should be simple, but I'm sure every one of you that does resource scheduling in this industry appreciates it is not simple. So we're here to show you some great tools today that should make that effort a lot more effective. And there are huge gains to be had when you get that right. So hopefully you'll learn something there today. Tom's here to show you supply chain. And so, we've all seen such volatility in the supply chain in the last few years. Hopefully those days aren't going to be thrust upon us anytime soon, but there are still some things you can do proactively to manage your supply chain better, give you better visibility, and also think about that Copilot generative AI lens taken into that supply chain. And so he'll show you some of that today. And then finally, we'll wrap up with Mark. Mark is very interested in making sure you do all of these things safely. So he's going to talk about making sure you remove vulnerability in your devices that are out there in the field, plus also setting yourself up in your tenant for Copilot so that you can get started with some of this groundbreaking technology. So that's it from me today. I am about to hand over to Thomas, but thank you so much for being here. We do hope you enjoy your lunch, those wonderful 50 that are able to get the lunch on us, and we look forward to meeting you again soon. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Christy. So just before letting Thomas come on stage, I have a few slides, just a few positioning slides of Dynaway. So here we're going to look into preventive maintenance inside of D365. So it's really an interconnected platform where you have an EAM solution inside of the ERP solution as well. So my name is Mikkel, and I'm here as the wingman to Thomas. Thomas will take you safely through the presentation as we go along, but just a few clarification slides on our side. So we'll just move into the next slide here. One of the typical questions that we get is often where Dynaway and asset management typically sits within which industries. So the ones you see here in green, they are our typical sweet spots. So definitely, if you're in those, you should be considering this. The lighter blue ones along the bottom are ones where we see that there could be a potential of asset management and Dynaway as well. But the reason being is that we're always looking at assets from an internal perspective. So we are maintaining our own assets from a Dynaway and Microsoft asset management perspective. Just to clarify that as well, we have a slide with some references, some of the names you probably know, but here we also grouped it into different sectors. So you can see typically in food and beverage, manufacturing, and then also energy and natural resources, we have our customer bases typically oriented. Thomas, that was my very short and speedy pitch. I'll hand it over to you.
Thank you, Mikkel. Thank you all. So the next 20 minutes, I'm going to talk about how we can optimize our lifecycle management within D365. I have a few slides I will start up with, and then I will go in and I will show you a real life demo. First of all, using asset management within D365, then we are now able to cover the big picture of asset management within finance supply chain management. Because in the past, we of course had the acquire and retire part as a part of the fixed asset, but with asset management, we can now manage and maintain those assets within D365. We can build a multi-level asset structure based on function locations, asset register, list of approved spare parts working directly into warehousing. We can define a maintenance schedule for the work we do out in the future. When we have created those work orders, we can cover different work order types, maintaining our assets. We can do fault management, checklist follow-up, so that at the end of the day, we can use D365 and asset management for our budget and cost control, and we can do analytics and KPI on top of it. That is covering the big picture of asset management within D365. What we do is that we will bring your multi-level asset structure into D365. This is an example of the demo data from Microsoft that we find in D365, where we have a plastic producing plant. We have built a multi-level asset structure, and at any level within that structure, we can go in, we can get a work order overview, we can get a cost overview, we can get all the overviews that are needed to help us working with the life cycle for our assets. I will give you some examples on that, how you can work with that, how we can create preventive work orders and ensure that we do the work that we plan to do. So this is the multi-level asset structure that we can create within D365. When we have created that multi-level asset structure, then we can move our preventive work from chaos into control. Because what we are actually able to do within D365 is that we can do a strategic overview many years out into the future. We call that the maintenance schedule. So that means that when you have defined your different maintenance plans, you can create a schedule out into the future to let you do that strategic planning. I have customers that are doing that 10 years in advance every day. At one point, you decide, okay, now we want to move from a strategic overview into some long-term planning to fit those work orders into planned shutdowns, maybe where you're shutting down different areas of your site. I would call that long-term planning. This is where we have created the work orders. We often do that 4 to 6, 8 weeks in advance, depending on the delivery time of our spare parts. Of course, we want to ensure that we have those. When we do the long-term planning, then our forecast of the work can also be included in the MRP to ensure that we have the parts. And then finally, when we have done the long-term planning, where we have put the overall work orders into different boxes, then we can do the short-term scheduling. That's where we schedule the work down to the worker that needs to execute the work order. And we want to do that so that we can have this feedback loop within our preventive work within asset management. It all starts up here at the top with the maintenance plan. You define the maintenance plan, the blueprint of what you want to do. That maintenance plan will both create the schedule lines, but this is also where we can set up what is the forecast for the work that we do. Then we generate the maintenance schedule for the strategic planning. We can adjust those schedule lines. We can discard them if we have a period where we don't want to do the work. Once we create the work order, that's when we start to do the long-term planning. And when we have scheduled it to the worker and the worker goes out and execute that work, then based on the feedback and the consumption of those work orders, we can then correct the maintenance plan. So let's say that I have scheduled 4 hours to do a monthly inspection of a forklift. But when we have done it for 6, 8, 10, 12 months, and we can start to get an overview that it only takes 3 hours to do it, and then of course we can optimize our maintenance plans, the forecast going forward. So for me, this is the loop within our preventive work. That was the quick introduction on how we can use asset management for optimizing the use of our assets. So let's jump into D365. So let's change the sharing here into D365. So hopefully you can now see my D365, but I actually want to start out here on a mobile device because I have now put my hard hat on. I am looking at what is the work I need to do. Here I am looking at my week, and I can see that on Friday I am performing a monthly inspection of a forklift. Of course, here as a worker, I can go in, I can get all of the details of the asset. I can see what have we done in the past. I can see, do we have other open work orders, requests that I can do when I'm doing this work. But before I start my work, let's do some steps back in time to see how did I end up with this work order at my worker. So for that, I want to go into D365. Because within D365, this is where I have built my multi-level asset structure. So if I go into D365 and open up my assets, then I can look at my asset view. As you can see here, I have a multi-level asset structure. I have defined one of my plans. Within this plant, I could have a raw material area where I have all of my silos. I could have a production area where I have the different lines and all the assets that are associated with each of those lines. And because my forklift is driving around the plant, then I don't want to put them on a line. That's why I have built a location with all of my forklifts. At any level within this asset structure, if I want to know how are we performing at line number 1, then I can simply just jump to this location. And directly from this function location, I can get a cost overview. And when I want to get that cost overview, I can, of course, include all of my sublocations. We can also build this as a dashboard in Power BI, of course, but this is a very easy way to get a total cost overview of any level that you're standing within that structure. So when you have built this asset view, when you have defined how you're going to work with that in the future, then we can start to define our maintenance plans. Because what we want to do is that we want to move our cost away from the corrective work that we cannot plan into a more preventive work orders where we have a chance to plan out, to get that strategic overview out in the future, to have a good idea about what should we budget next year. Because if we can move the cost from unplanned into planned, that will of course be a huge advantage. What I have done here, and I don't want to show you a lot of screens, is that within D365, I have defined different maintenance plans. One of the maintenance plans that I have defined is one that I call forklift preventive maintenance. This one is time-based, but we could also have more counter-based predictive maintenance plans. On this one here, I am doing an annual inspection, a monthly inspection, and a weekly inspection. But of course, if I had like hours in use on my forklift, I could also build my maintenance plans based on the usage instead of doing it based on the calendar. When you have built these plans, when you have defined what is the work we want to do, then you need to create that blueprint, that plan of what is actually happening. So if I'm looking at this job that we are doing, then I have defined different plans. One of the plans I have done is that when I do a monthly mechanical inspection of a forklift, I can go in and I can set up what will that take of time? What are the parts that we need so that the warehouse can plan that to ensure that I have the parts that I need? This is also where I can build my checklists, my work descriptions, and I can even attach different documents for what I want to do. That is the first part. This is where you build the maintenance plan so that we can extend the asset life of our assets. When you have created those plans, when you have created the blueprint for the work you want to do, then it is just one click on a button, and we can even put that into a batch job to update the maintenance schedule. So here we have a periodic job that can update my schedule out into the future. Just before this meeting, I decided to do that 4 years out into the future. So of course, I can go from Dynamics. I can see all of the schedule lines of the work we need to do out in the future. That can come from all kinds of plans. But of course, this is a good overview. But if I want to do my strategic planning here, then I can open up the capacity load. Because when you are running the capacity load within D365 or in Power BI, then we can get that overview without even creating the work orders. I have updated the capacity load here. I can see that my load out in the future is close to 3,000 hours. That is not a lot, but remember, this is just a few demo data that I have. Now I can start to do some strategic planning. Because when I have created those schedule lines out into the future, I can see what is the capacity load based on every year. I can do it based on every month. I can look at it based on the different trade that I need. So now I get an idea about what is the number of people I need to execute the work out into the future. If I want to make adjustments, then I can just go back to my maintenance plan. I can change it. I can do the update, and I can see the result right away. That is an excellent way to do strategic planning instead of just fixing things when they are breaking down. The next step here is, of course, to create the work orders. I could also have done that automatically. So maybe I want to get a strategic overview 10 years out into the future, but I want to create my work orders 4 weeks out into the future. I have now created my work orders. So if I go in and I look at the different work orders I have, I can see that we are doing a monthly forklift inspection on the 1st of December. If I had created that 6 to 8 weeks in advance, then of course the forecast that I have can be included in my master plan so that we can ensure that we have the parts that we need. The next step on that work order then is to do my short-term scheduling. So now we have moved from a more strategic overview to a long-term planning where I can adjust my work orders into the different shutdowns if that is needed. So now I want to schedule it down to the worker or the workers that are actually doing that work. For that, we can use the Dynaway scheduling board. That's what you see here, where I can get an overview of what is my team doing, because now I want to schedule the work down to the worker level. Here I have all the works that are ready to be scheduled. I can easily do my drag and drop. So if I want to do an emergency generator weekly PM tomorrow, I can do that. I can split up the work. I can see the workload of each of my team members. And when I am happy with the scheduling, then I can hit the save button, and then my schedule has now been updated. Now we are ready to execute the work. Maybe you can remember my loop with the different boxes, because it is the worker that needs to execute the work and to capture all of the consumption and feedback of the work order. And for that, instead of printing out a work order report, take that paper, go out to the forklift, put all the different notes, well, instead, I want to use a mobile device. This is the mobile client from Dynaway. I am emulating it on an iPad. It is a web app, so that means that it runs inside the browser. It has offline capability, so if I go into a dark area of my plant where we don't have any Wi-Fi, then I can still work with my mobile device, because it's only the worker that can capture that information. So I can now see the work I need to do. This is the monthly forklift inspection that started with a maintenance plan and a job plan inside D365. It was turned into a schedule line. A work order was created from that schedule line, and we have now scheduled that work order down to the worker. I can easily start my work. So I can put my job into progress. I can look at my checklist. I can fill out the checklist based on drop downs. I can do different measurements readings. I can also set up that if I am outside of a threshold, that it should automatically create work orders. That is all part of executing work. But of course, the important part here is also that if we go back to the job, that I update my notes, and most importantly, that we track the time that we have spent. So here I can go into my hour consumption. I can see that we have 4 hours of forecast. I can track my time by registering time against it. So I could put in and say, well, I have spent 5 hours today. When we do that follow-up on the hours afterwards, that will then help me adjusting my plans so that we can work smarter in the future. It is also from the mobile device that you can do your consumption registrations. Because when we look at the cost of what we are spending maintaining our assets, that will always be a combination of hours we have registered, items that we have used, and expenses. That could be a subcontractor helping you with the work. So when we charge all of that and register it all towards a work order, then we know exactly, and I want to stop now so we also leave some time for the next presenters. But when I go back now where we all started, in the asset view within D365, if I drill down at any of my locations or sub-locations, or even down to the one forklift that I have been working on, when I'm standing here on one of those assets, then I can easily get not only a capacity load overview of what we're doing out into the future, but I can, for each of my assets or for the group, go in and see what have we actually spent. What have we actually spent on this forklift, maybe even including sub-assets. I know a lot of you have mobile equipments with different components. We can track that on a component level. We can see that cost on a higher level. And we can do all of that because we have done those registrations. This was a bad example. This is a forklift where I only have forecasted. I have not yet executed any work, but of course I can get that cost overview. So that was a 25 minute introduction into how we can optimize our asset lifecycle management within D365, how we can move our work orders and the overview from chaos to control by having these maintenance plans, by using the different elements of asset management within D365. I think that was what I wanted to show you today. I will be sitting on the call. If you have any questions for me at the end, I will look forward to answer those questions. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Troy Gerber. I'm representing the Fusion 5 Solutions Strategy team, and I'm going to focus today on how you can elevate your operations with Microsoft Copilot. Just so we're all on the same page, on no Copilot has been in the news for the last couple of months, but just so we all know what it is, what its intent is, it's basically an AI assistant that lives in your applications. It's Microsoft's brand for their AI assistant. It's very much a context-driven assistant, so it works with you based on in the application you're working in, or based on the task that you're busy doing. So it's not a one-size-fits-all Copilot. There are multiple Copilots for each application type. That said, currently to date, we have 160 different Copilots, and some of them are actually named Copilots. Some of them are just functionality embedded into the Microsoft ecosystem that perform a Copilot function, so using AI in the background to generate content or to generate context. There are effectively two types of Copilots that we're going to focus on. One is the out-of-the-box and then the fully tailored. The out-of-the-box Copilots are the ones that live inside of the Microsoft applications that we are very much used to. So there's a Copilot inside of Dynamics, Copilot inside of Windows 365. The oldest Copilot we have is the GitHub Copilot that writes code. But for every mainstream Microsoft application that you have, you will have a Copilot that lives in that application, that lives alongside of you, that helps you do more with less inside of that application. So what can a Copilot do for me? And I realize I haven't shared my sound, so let me make sure I actually do that. I think we should be good. What the Copilot can do for me is very much driven around context. So it's all about where you are, what you're doing. The Copilot looks at the context of where you are and says, hey, I can do this for you because you're busy doing that task. To demonstrate this, I'm going to play a short video from Microsoft around how they use Copilot in Dynamics Field Service to assist with login tickets and scheduling resources.
Introducing Copilot in Dynamics 365 Field Service, helping your front line deliver exceptional service. With Copilot, your customer escalations are pre-populated into draft work orders for frontline managers to review in Outlook. And with recommendations based on travel time, availability, skill set, and more, your technician scheduling becomes streamlined.
So if the guards were with us, you all would actually heard the narration across the top of that. So very quick video that went through very quickly, very difficult to grasp it. So let me quickly run through the video step by step and give you a sense of how the Copilot kicked in and where it kicked in. So the scenario here is field service, and field service issuing a ticket to have somebody go out and do a repair or do a task is very typical in most organizations. But we don't really know where that task might start. So many times it could be an email, it could be something from the help desk. It's sort of irrelevant when it comes to the Copilot. So in this context, we're looking at being inside of Microsoft Outlook, and the first thing that happens there is an email comes in, it's a support ticket. The Copilot automatically picks up based on the email address and the content that it is a field service request, and we'll have a look at that in detail in a slide or two. And it then prompts the person receiving the email, be it the help desk person or anybody in the organization that has access, and says, hey, I've picked up an email, and I think you might want to create a work order from this, generate an email reply, or even schedule a work order. So it starts picking up the task and says, hey, based on where I am, I know I can send emails out. So that's the thing I'm going to do. That's my context. And I know that I have access to field service, so I can even generate a work order for you. Once that is passed through to the field service agent, they have access to all the information. Now, what we typically get is in the field service app or any of the custom apps is built, we get a nice little field service screen. What we have here on this screen here is a summary of that task. So what the Copilot does inside the field service app, instead of giving you some sort of blocky format of this is the customer, this is what you do, it goes and summarizes the task into a natural language. So anybody on the ground can just pick up a task and read through it and see what needs to be done. And it has all the relevant details with when the task was created, who the customer is, what is the basic detail with the drill through to the actual task in the app. So it provides a much richer natural language context versus somebody having to read through the app screens to get to the gist of what they have to do. In this example, you can see that the field service icon is actually popped into the email, and that's because field service has recognized that this is the customer account. And the Copilot pops up on the side and says, hey, would you like to generate a work order from this? I actually can do that for you. This is what I can help you with. And when you click yes, it looks at the context of the email and starts pulling out the context and pre-populating your work order template. So in this case, it's urgent. We know it's from Fabricam. We see it's an HVAC repair. It's derived that by looking at the contents of the email. And also it's created a summary of the email. So instead of just taking the email body and just dropping it in and saying this is what the customer wants, it creates a nice summary. So it's a lot easier for the service technician on the other side to have that correct context, once again, without having to go through all the details on top of that. But we can actually take it a little bit further. So now we have a work order scheduled. This is where AI-powered scheduling takes over. So it knows the next step is for you to schedule with a service agent. So it says, hey, I can actually help you with that as well. I have access to all the data. I have context of the data. I know what type of repair needs to be done. Let me help you. And it actually goes and finds the service agent that is closest or available, or based on skill set, and those are parameters you can fine tune. And says, right, I've got this. This is my suggestion. I suggest we use David for this. And you'll see there is a schedule button at the bottom, and I can click on that and it takes me through. One of the things that Copilots never do is actually do the action natively. They don't automatically assign somebody or automatically send an email or a task. They will always recommend. So that is their purpose. They are Copilots. They're saying, hey, I can help you with this. And you can then choose to take that help, or you can reject it and just carry on working normally. So why does this matter to us? Why is Copilot going to change the way we work? And it's very simple. Without AI, without Copilots, where we typically start is we need to go and find information. So it might be to respond to a service request or a knowledge request, and we're going to our knowledge base and try and find it. So we do end up delivering great things at the end of the day, but it does start with us having to do a lot of legwork and trying to find context. What the Copilot does is it gives us a start where that first part is saved. Those hours are saved getting the first draft out, and we basically start with a first draft that is really solid, that we can then fine tune and make sure that is applicable and working, that we can then push that through to the next stage. So we basically get to go from good to outstanding in the same time period, if not less than we had if we were doing just a decent job. The Microsoft have done quite a few studies on the impact of Copilot. Those are available through Microsoft, and we're happy to share that out with you as well. And on average, the return is about up to 70% time saving for the average worker when it comes to using the Copilots in the context of the applications they work in. Cool. Copilot is extensible, and this is really key. So we've got these amazing Copilots. What can we do if the Copilot we have does great things, but it doesn't have context of maybe an additional data source, or maybe I want to fine tune it a bit for a specific scenario. And Microsoft have provided quite a comprehensive lot of tool sets for that. Recently announced, literally 2 weeks ago at Microsoft Ignite, was a Microsoft Copilot Studio, which is a studio to actually go and enhance Copilots, and I'll show you that in a moment. They've also taken all their AI functionality and created a single bundle called Azure AI Studio. So all the underlying AI technology we need to build Copilots is available to us as well. And then, of course, we have the fantastic Power Platform that we've all known and have been using for the last couple of years, which is our default way to extend anything inside of Dynamics. And Copilot kicks into that as well. And if we have time, we'll do a demo on that right now. So in Copilot Studio, the big thing is Copilot Studio, you can build your own Copilot. You can literally start and say, right, I want to go and create my own little intelligence that will live inside of my application that I can use with my own context. The building blocks for that are all natural language. There's no coding required to do that. It's a matter of using the capabilities you have right now. So it is a low code add-in. For those on the call that are familiar with Microsoft Power Virtual Agent, Microsoft Copilot Studio is effectively a rebrand and an enhancement of that product, so your low-code capabilities kick in. You can also extend Copilots. So the Copilots that you saw in the video, and you'll see later in some of the other demos from the other presenters, if you have one of those Copilots and you'd like to extend it by adding more context to it, you can extend the first part of Copilot. So I have a Copilot inside a field service. I might want to add a bit of more context. Maybe the scheduling isn't taking place in my Dynamics application and I use a third-party tool. I can add that to my Copilot so it has cognizance and awareness of that as well. Copilot Studio is going to be available with Microsoft 365 Copilot. The actual costings and licensing will be announced early next year, currently in preview. So sort of watch the press for that. But it's going to be seeded with the enterprise licenses and can also be acquired as a standalone application. Importantly, it's a connected platform. So everything that we've been using for the last couple of years to build applications in low code are available. So we can integrate into Azure AI Studio, so we can leverage the models that Microsoft have there. We can use things like Azure AI Search, the bot framework, as well as all the Power Platform AI models, as well as those over 1,100 connectors that are available in the Power Platform become available to the studio in a low-code format. And if we have time, we'll have a look at one of those as well. So that all converges where we have everything that we're used to in the bottom layer, those lovely blue blocks, Copilot Studio in the middle, allowing us to build our own Copilots, enhance the Copilots we have, as well as customize through third-party and Azure AI Studio. So if I do want to build my own Copilot from scratch and I don't want to go down the studio route and I actually want to get deep down into the actual model side, I can do that as well. And this is where Azure AI Studio kicks in. Azure AI Studio will expose all the models inside of Azure AI, not only the Azure OpenAI ones we've got from OpenAI, but all the other models as well. So anything that is an open source model or machine learning or ones that you brought yourself. And with those models, you'll be able to go into the studio, add your own contexts. So in this case, we've got adding your own system message to make sure that the AI knows what it has to do, as well as adding your own data. And so you can not only build your Copilot with the context you need, but you can ground it in your own data so you know that what you're getting out is from information you trust and have curated. Cool, let's have a look and see if we can actually take a little bit of time to demo. And we'll have a quick look at what those look like. So I'm currently inside of Copilot Studio, and I'm not going to go through it in detail from a time point of view, which is just add some context. With the Copilot Studio now, we have access to generative AI, so we have access to all the OpenAI models. Topics is where we typically, when we build Copilot, we want to give the Copilot context of what it has to do. So connect to this, get this information. One of the wonderful new features we have inside of topics is we have something called plugins or actions, and I'll zoom in on that. I've added one for demo. This is where we can connect our Copilot to our systems of record or our actionable systems in the background. I've added a very simple plugin which connects to Microsoft Planner. So what I want to do is sort of demonstrate how that would work and how easy it is to connect a business system that I use to my Copilot. So I'll jump into the topic section. Let's go back into there. And I've set up a topic already called Update Planner. And the topic has got what we would expect, a trigger phrase. So it is listening for something. So even for the Copilot, I have to ask it a question. Now, normally here we would spend quite a bit of time building up the logic and structure, but I don't have time for that. So I'm just going to say I want you to call an action, and I want you to use one of the plugins I've configured. And I've got a plugin called Create a Task. That is the one I want you to use. And what this is going to do is going to add to this topic of mine, my update planner is going to add a connection to Planner. And I'm going to save that. Now, I haven't told it anything else. I've just told it that this is the connection you need to use to save to Planner. I've specified in the admin center what Planner group you have to use. So let's have a look to see, does this actually work? So let's go and see what we can do with this. So we'll go, hey, create a task. And you'll notice that it's actually going to jump into that planner and it says, who would you like to assign the task to? So I have my good friend Nate available somewhere. You quickly grab your email address, Nathan, and I'm going to hit enter. Next thing it's going to ask me for is what is the task title? Make Troy a cup of tea. And I'm going to hit enter. So hopefully that should work. We'll pray to the demo gods and we'll give it a second or two. So it's fantastic new planner task created. Let's do a refresh in my planner board. And voila, there is my topic with Nathan attached to it. What was amazing there is you might have noticed I never told the plugin what questions to ask. I didn't tell it I need to get this task, I need to get the person's email address. It automatically derived this. So it looks at the data source and the AI then says, hey, this is what I need in order to complete this function, and pushes that forward. So that is a very, very basic demo of how we can start building our own copilots using our own data, not only to pull data out, but also to interact with our systems of record and our operational systems. So we have a full transaction end to end. As I mentioned before, we also have access to Azure AI Studio. This is a bit of a longer demo, so I'll try and keep it quite light. Inside of Azure AI Studio, you can work with some of the popular models. In this case, I'm working with GPT 3.5 Turbo. If you're using the free version of ChatGPT, that's the engine that it's used. And I can ask it questions, and I've actually got a pre-populated question. And from an HR point of view, I'm found out that I'm pregnant. In my case, I might just be eating too much butter chicken pies. And I can hit enter and I can ask it a question. And what it's going to do is going to come back and it's going to say, as an AI, I can provide general health information, and it provides me with very basic blah, 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 blah. So this is really just stuff that it's picked up from what it was trained on. But I want to actually make sure this model is customized. I want to create an AR Copilot, HR Copilot. So I'm going to go and fine tune the system message a bit. And as a good TV chef, I have one pre-prepped. So I'm going to drop that in. And my system message is a little bit more detailed. It tells the Copilot what its purpose is. You provide HR information, you clarify, you always are helpful, and you only use information that you can find. And now I'm going to do something slightly different. I'm now going to go say add data, and I'm going to specify a data source. For the demo, I've kept it quite simple. I'm just using Azure AI Search. There's a whole bunch of PDFs inside a blob store. This could be linked to anything. This could be linked into your SharePoint environment. It could be a call through to a normal AI search. It could be a Cosmos DB. It doesn't really matter. Now, when I do this and I clear it up, and if the demo cards are with us, we will ask the same question, and hopefully we should get a slightly better response. So what the model is now doing is it's answering the question. The requested topic is not available. It can retrieve. Please try another query, which is good. So it's actually told me you can't find it. What would have happened in the perfect world is it would have actually given us information from the policies that we have, as well as citations to that. But it didn't work, so we'll move on. I think I have 2 or 3 minutes left, so I'm going to leverage those, if that's okay, G, and go on to our last demo. And this is literally just a very simple example of how we can use the Power Platform as well as Copilot inside of our Power Apps environments. So very, very basic demo. I've created a table inside of Dataverse. That table has a whole bunch of vehicle maintenance records, typical stuff, last time service, etc. But I can take my data that's there, and I can actually embed a Copilot into my Power App. So this is a add-on for Power Apps where I drop a Copilot into my app. This is a live app, and I can tell it to use that data as a source of information. So now instead of going to click through everything to find different service information, I can jump in. I think I have a couple of preset queries here, and I can say how many vehicles were serviced in 2023. And let's give it a go. What the Copilot does is it uses dynamic search based on my security context and the data and it generates content. So it's gone through and said, hey, you serviced 10 vehicles in 2023. So that's fantastic. Let's have a look at what was the total cost of services for 2023. I have that data available as well. It's not on the screen, but it's in the data set, so it's happy to work with that. So total cost of services was 5,000. Let's do with one more. I want to get more detail. So how many times did we service MSG 145, which is one of the vehicles we have? So we've got that in the data set as well. Once again, crawling through, even though you use the term service and we actually use the word maintenance, it's natural language, so it picks up the difference and comes back and says, no, I can find that you serviced it twice. And then just the last one, just to show you that we can actually do a little bit more than just get that. We can say, give me the summary of the details for that as well. So actually tell me what you did. I'm very keen to understand what type of maintenance was done on that vehicle in that last service. And it'll once again run through everything. And now it's generated response. So it's taken everything from the columns and it's generated a response for me in natural language. Service details, first service is an oil change, when it was done, had a second one, which was brake inspection, and the dates, etc. So this gives you an idea of what we can do when it comes to how these co-pilots will save us so much time and be part of our world when it comes to working in the operation space. And I think that's me, Darren.
Good morning, everyone. Or afternoon, if you're joining Trans-Tasman from my location in cloudy Melbourne here today. I am going to be talking to you about Dynamics 365 for field service and what that can mean in terms of working in an asset-intensive industry where we need to service and maintain plant. It might be yours, it might be that belongs to your customers. Either way, we've got a use case for this. There'll be some overlap with the Dynaway content that you've seen, but we'll probably focus more on a customer-centric point of view and leveraging the broader data that we like to capture within D365. So please make sure that we've got our thinking hats on and how this might apply to you. Ask questions in the chat and I will answer those for you as soon as I'm done with my presentation. So Dynamics 365 Field Service. It is a part of the broader Dynamics 365 application landscape that includes things like sales, customer service, marketing, customer insights, as it's now called, and that's all powered and backed by the by Microsoft's broader customer data platform, and we also love Power BI as well. So here we are: sales, customer service, field service, marketing, and then of course we've got finance and supply chain management that make up that broader D365 application ecosystem. And today we're going to be focusing firmly on field service, but this is part of the wider Power Platform play, which includes things like Power Apps, and this is what Troy was just showing us before with that last part of his demonstration. Power BI for dashboards and analytics, Power Automate for automated processes and workflows, and of course Power Virtual Agents, where we can start to bring our conversational AI to our customers to help them with self-service as well. So as mentioned, we'll be drilling down into field service today. So as Christy mentioned in the beginning of the presentation, we want to send the best person for the job with the right equipment and the right skills. Right? And that's really important. Rebookings are an incredibly inefficient and costly way to be able to deliver the service. To send a person that wasn't actually skilled to do the job in the first place, they might cause more damage than they fixed on their service visit. We want to make sure that they also have the right equipment with them. So that might be a particular piece of equipment, for testing, validation, to make sure that they can do those jobs. And field service gives us the tools to make intelligent decisions about who we send where. And I'm going to jump straight into a lovely little 3-minute video from Microsoft to show you a high-level view of what can be achieved in field service with D365, and then I'm going to unpack that for you in a bit more detail. So hold on.
Contoso, an HVAC manufacturer, remotely monitors their systems deployed by Fabricam via IoT alerts and using AI. Molly, Contoso's field service manager, starts her day in Microsoft Teams. She asks Microsoft 365 Chat about unscheduled work orders. Microsoft 365 Chat responds with a list of work orders created in Dynamics 365 Field Service from customer cases, calls, emails, and IoT alerts. Molly reviews the list and opens Fabricam's work order in Teams. She sees scheduling suggestions from Copilot and assigns a technician. Contoso's dispatcher Veronica starts her day in Dynamics 365 Field Service. She can see unscheduled work orders or navigate to the schedule board, where she sees work orders scheduled by Contoso's managers. and work orders that were created automatically by resource scheduling optimization. Veronica can also modify the schedule board manually. David, a Contoso field service technician, starts his day in the field service mobile app, where he sees that he's been assigned to the Fabricam work order. David uses Copilot to summarize the work order. He reviews the summary, directions to the site, required products and inventory, and the asset history. When he arrives at Fabricam, David follows the step-by-step tasks. During inspection, the system fails a pressure check. David quickly opens a guide, reviews relevant knowledge articles, and realizes he needs expert help. David launches a remote assist session to contact a remote expert who inspects the HVAC system via a video call and instructs David to replace a pressure sensor. Problem solved. David updates the work order by speaking to Copilot in the Field Service mobile app, which provides recommended work order updates. At Fabricam, the facilities manager checks on other systems and emails Contoso's field service manager Molly about an anomaly with another unit. Using Copilot in the new field service add-in for Microsoft Outlook, Molly quickly creates a work order pre-populated with the relevant details from the email and schedules a technician based on their availability, location, and skill set. Work order data automatically syncs with Dynamics 365, so Molly can stay in the flow of her work and save valuable time. As the work order progresses, Molly stays up to date with intelligent recaps generated by Copilot in the Dynamics 365 field service. Throughout the day, David, the field technician, can stay on top of his work orders and communication using the Field Service mobile app or via the familiar Microsoft Viva Connections home experience in Microsoft Teams. He reviews work order details, makes status updates, and launches Remote Assist if he needs expert help. Using Teams is convenient and saves David valuable time. Back at the office, Molly and other managers get a dashboard view of work order history and technicians' average scheduling, travel, and completion times. They can also see work order trends by incident type, service territory, and system status, helping them make informed decisions to run a fast and lean business. Microsoft Dynamics 365 Field Service enables Contoso to personalize the service experience, make work more effortless for technicians, and optimize service operations.
Now, that video does a fantastic job of summarizing what would take me about an hour and a half of talking to take you through end to end. And I hope that it gives you a good understanding of what the end-to-end offering of Microsoft Dynamics Field Service can bring. Now, you may have picked out a theme there that Copilot is a really, really important and deeply woven element of the field service offering with Microsoft. I'm not going to go into that in much detail today, but certainly it's there to make everyone's lives easier, from the person who's doing the field service bookings to the technician on site, and certainly from a customer service and case management point of view, I can tell you that the summarize option, which will go through the notes, the calls and activities that you've had regarding a particular incident, does an amazing job of distilling what might take you 5 minutes of reading through individual activities and updates into a couple of paragraphs that you can consume in an instant to come up to speed with where things are currently at. So let me just note next through here. So this is really about modernizing your field service capabilities and using the tooling that we're going to bring forward to allow that to happen. So with D365, we want to ensure that you can book, schedule, and dispatch the best person for every job every time. And the typical challenges that we see with our customers are around, low visibility into field workforce, location, workload, and capabilities. We don't necessarily know where a person is, how far from the next job, how traffic might impact the time to site. Are they already overloaded, and do they have those capabilities? And we've worked with customers to transform manual processes that were previously a giant whiteboard in a field service workshop or warehouse into something that gives them visibility and process that they've never had before. So paper and Excel are often used. They are inefficient, often error prone. Some people don't keep them up to date in real time, and they can lead to inefficiencies or rebookings where we've sent the wrong person. It was never the right person to actually attend that job because they didn't have the parts, or they didn't have that knowledge or experience and expertise. And it can also cause a long time from incident to service. So when the customer reports that they have a problem to the time that we can get someone there, these processes can make that take longer than it ought to. With field service, we can make sure that you've got that full picture. We want you to be able to see where are people, how loaded and busy are they, when can we get them there. We can build on that customer 360-degree view of truth. And this is something that all of our customers want as a core outcome of deploying Dynamics 365, is they want that unified view across sales, across marketing, across customer service, across field service, to make sure that they know their customers and can act and respond appropriately. And there's also opportunities to automatically schedule common service jobs. So, you know, they might find that 20% of the 20% of your types of field service might actually make up 80% of the workload, and they are standard jobs. They can be done and scheduled without much planning around how that needs to happen. We can also make sure that at the moment that they hit the system, that they are automatically routed to the closest person with the best availability and the skills matrix to make sure that they can that they are able to get their ASAP. And that means that your schedulers can spend more time digging into the more complicated field service jobs that come their way, rather than scheduling the same sort of lower order jobs again and again and again. We want to enable your field service staff with knowledge and process. So with D365, we can make sure your field staff can access knowledge articles, inspection checklists, and service tasks. Now, we see that specific knowledge lives inside people's heads or hard to access systems. Maybe you need to be in the office or connected to a VPN to be able to access that, or it's buried away in a SharePoint library somewhere that no one ever really can find what they're looking for. Different people perform the same job differently, so they aren't necessarily aligning to best practice or performing the same job the same way as their counterparts. Onboarding new talent is difficult. It takes a long time to bring them up to speed because they can't access the information. The learning curve to come up to speed is great, and they're not quite sure who to talk to when about the questions that they may have. And what we can do is we can surface that information in D365 in terms of knowledge-based articles for, you know, common plant equipment and processes. That might include, you know, installation guides. It could be the actual product manual and specifications, the safety data sheets to go along with the products that are being used can all be stored and accessed remotely in the field in the context of the job that they're doing. We can define service tasks and inspection checklists to make sure that the key steps for a job are performed, or at least the guidance is there to make sure that they are performed consistently. And at the end, an inspection checklist can be done to make sure that we're passing the sort of operational parameters of the work that we have done. You know, capture photographs as proof, and of course, you know, capture signature on glass sign-offs from customers to ensure that they are happy that the job has been completed as well. And we can also do connected field service with IoT. So if you have machinery, if you have equipment, or just a sensor network which is currently talking back to some sort of, you know, IoT framework, we can actually pick that up and we can log jobs automatically. Might be a HVAC unit that's failed. It could be a grain silo that's thrown some sort of safety alarm that needs to be looked at. We can have that automatically create a work order in field service, and as mentioned before, use, if this is desirable, the universal resource scheduler to automatically route that to a field service technician to get their ASAP to go and take care of that. Because it's normal that our customers will tell us when something is broken or needs attention, and we want to change that so that we're actually telling our customers that we're on the way and they weren't even aware that there was a problem yet. That kind of delay in action when the customer tells us normally means that all work orders become urgent at the point of creation, because they've realized that it's broken. It's now having an impact in terms of their manufacturing processes or their regular business activities, and they want that fixed yesterday. It'd be great to say that we are aware of the problem and a service technician is already on the way. And it is with connected field service, we are able to achieve those sorts of outcomes as well. And as a whole, in terms of field service, it is a full-featured, capable and flexible platform. And those capabilities allow us to take things from case within D365 or another case management platform, or email straight to a work order. We've got scheduling boards, skills matching, a full-featured mobile app that captures signature and glass, like I mentioned before, access to knowledge. It's not a full it's not a full asset management and life cycling system, but we can actually connect that back into D365 finance and operations to be able to bring forward the asset tree that's been created there, and then send back all of the work that has taken place against those assets and costs for a full asset lifecycle view when we bring that together in the broader ecosystem. You know, time tracking, parts tracking, service agreements, warranty. We can book crews rather than individual people. We can do the integration, as I mentioned, you know, service task inspections, service entitlements, IoT, and workforce capacity management to make sure that we're not booking someone who's on leave or who's not available at that point in time. And as we've seen throughout, we've got Copilot for D365 woven through that experience as well. So let me show you a very quick view of the world, how this can come together. So I'm logged into D365 Field Service, and we're going to have a look at some work orders that I currently have in the system. So these have been generated, and rather than make you watch me fill out one from scratch, I've got one that's unscheduled. I've already filled this out to capture that, you know, at the moment it has no priority, but maybe I've been told this is actually a high priority that needs to be captured for this particular work order. Which account it's been captured against. So Fusion 5 Minerals is the company that has the problem, and we know that we need to replace a CP24 light on a Caterpillar D11 dozer, which is part of an install or replace work order type and the incident type itself. So this starts to tell us what needs to be done, what the regular sort of time it's going to take. This is not part of a service agreement, but if I had one, we can actually set up agreements that will automatically book in periodic work orders to be completed. It might be for sort of scheduled maintenance or preventative maintenance as well. And the summary here, we can see that the left-hand light has been damaged in a magpie attack and no longer operational. The vehicle is now restricted to night work until the light has been replaced. The service tech should glue googly eyes to the rear of his hard hat to ward off further magpie attacks while undertaking the service tasks. But we can also include account-specific instructions here as well. Maybe we need to, you know, access via a particular gate or talk to a particular person on site when we arrive to make sure that we can do that. Capture things like promised time windows if I wanted to capture that. But we know this location, it's linked to a functional site. So site A is the site for this customer, and it's located in the Sunshine Coast hinterland over here on Perrins Road as well. Now, immediately we can see that we're starting to get booking suggestions that are actually coming through for this. And we can see that it knows that both Gareth and Troy, so Gareth, our lead mechanic, thanks Gareth, and Troy, who we call Mr. Fix-It, are both available to actually attend this as well. And it's got some booking suggestions. It knows that I can get Gareth out there at about 12:10. I can get Troy out there today as well at about 15:15. And it knows the travel time from their current locations that we've also got set in the system. It also knows I can get Troy out there tomorrow as well, first thing in the morning. So if he leaves his home at 8:30, which is the start of his workday, and with a 28-minute travel time, that he'll actually arrive on site just before 9 is the plan based on what we know from being travel directions as well. So I can just go ahead and quickly click on book for any of these resources here if I wished, or maybe this is not quite the way that I want to make this booking work. So I can click on find availability. And this is going to pop me out to my full schedule board, which will allow me to do a deeper dive into the resources that I might be considering to use for this. So once again, we can see that I've got Gareth and Troy and all of their time slots that are actually showing down here on the side. And I can see at the moment, it looks like Gareth is up some sun over here on the Mooloolaba Beach, clearly working hard. And I've got Troy over here taking a surf down here on Kings Beach within Caloundra as well. Now, both of these gents are capable to do this work. And I can see that because when I actually look at someone's resource card, we can see here that the skills that I've actually put against both of these gents are basically showing me here that for assembly repair, we've got Gareth with a rating of excellent, and for Troy, we can do the same thing. we can actually see that Troy here for his assembly repair is rated at fair. And as part of the search criteria that's coming from this, we can see that I actually need someone that has at least a fair rating for that characteristic. So this is where we start to make sure that our skills match the person that we're sending. So if I clear out my characteristics rating and I click on search, we can actually see that it's going to open up another potential option. So I've also got Jan as well. Now, as it turns out, on my map, Jan is actually the closest person to this job. He is just down the road from that. But looking at Jan, I can understand why he wasn't included in the first round, and that's because his assembly repair is ranked as poor. So the system allows us for each of these service jobs to specify the skills and level of skill that we need to make that happen. We can start to do things around service regions, so only the right person from the right region by default will be included. In terms of the sort of territories, role types that we want someone to have to be able to do that, and we can also choose the time or distance from site in terms of the search radius that we're looking for as well. So in this case, I'm going to grab Gareth here and I'm going to choose to book and exit, and that's going to create a booking request. Now at this point, Gareth will be told that he has a job. It will come up on his phone so that he knows where he needs to go next. And the customer that we had linked this booking to in the first place will also be notified that someone has been booked, the time that they've been booked, and then we're going to use that field service mobile application to mark that we are, en route, so we are traveling or that we've arrived and that the work is being completed. And using Power Automate, we can then create some business workflow to make sure that we're keeping our customer up to date. Now, that might allow them to log into a portal to be able to provide their own update or to see that someone has been booked and when those arrival times are as well. They're all on the plate for options that can be that can be run. And so our work order is now scheduled. We can see it's against our primary asset, so Dingo, the dozer, and we can also see that we have a separate asset that allows us to manage the actual engine of that particular dozer as a separate asset, because that might move between machines over the life cycle of it and have its own warranty and its own service agreement that needs to be run separate to the actual equipment that it lives within. So our asset trees can be built out to support those sorts of outcomes as well. Right. Finally, when we look at the scheduling board as well, we can see that we've got a listing of all of our service assets that we can send out into the field. I've got 85 of them spread across a few different pages here, but I can easily sort of drill in and find the person that I'm looking for. I can search based on those characteristics as well, and I can see what's on their service timeline here too. Now, if I had an open requirement here, I could simply drag this up onto the timeline to basically pop that booking in, and when we have that flow of those open and unbooked requirements, it can become a really straightforward way to be able to find the right resource, look at their availability, start to drag and drop these around, and then have all of the follow-on activities sort of flow on from that point in time. So very high level demo of how we can actually use this experience to get the right person with the right skills to the right place at the right time, and to supercharge the way that you are offering your field service within your organizations. So that brings me to the end of my demonstration here today. So I'm going to hand over to our next speaker, and please pop any questions that you have into the Q&A and I'll start to have a look through those now.
Excellent. Thanks, Nate. G'day everybody, hopefully you can see my screen. My name's Tom Veach. I'm the Industry Director and Supply Chain for Supply Chain and Commerce at Fusion 5. So what I'm going to do today is walk you through some of the things that we have going on in Dynamics 365 Finance and Operations. My presentation will cover the key elements of supply chain, and then into a couple of areas of importance, and then we're going to do a bit of a demo. So the key elements of supply chain is obviously your operations, distribution, logistics, integration, purchasing, inventory management, production, and planning. And I'm going to drill into a few of these areas over the next few slides. And we're going to look at what Dynamics can do So I'll just go into my next slide. So Dynamics 365, we're going to walk you through how it can reshape the supply chain management in F&O, and through this process, we're going to show what real-time distribution looks like. We're going to show you how you can leverage real-time data from D365 in production. We're going to then look at predictive supply chain and staying ahead of the game with smart insights, how you can plan and react to any challenge. We're then going to look at how we can boost your efficiency and with a return on investment with this dynamic supply chain, and it's proven to save you time and money in just 3 years. Then we're going to look at simplify your operations with dynamic supply chain, whether you're a retailer, distributor, manufacturer, we have a solution for you. And then the next one is going to be how we can look at modern integration into D365, embracing the use of AI, virtual reality, IoT, and so on, and building a stronger, smarter supply chain. Some of the features in D365 now, out of the box, we have built-in ability to do shipping labels, SCC labels straight out of D365. We have a new inventory visibility service that allows us to connect and visualize the inventory levels within D365 to an external service, be it a commerce platform, be it a 3PL. We have that functionality now, which is live data. We also have a new supply risk assessment form and data within there where we can show what is happening within D365 from a vendor point of view and their supply. And we've also got Copilot built into certain areas within D365 now. One of the really cool things that's coming into D365 is with Microsoft Copilot and the vendor collaboration portal. We can now look at what's happening from the portal, and we can use a cool new feature that helps us track any changes that have been confirmed purchase orders and how they affect your downstream orders, what it's going to do for your downstream orders. We don't have to worry about updating our vendors manually. We can have it automatically build a clear and friendly summary of what's going on and message our vendors from within D365. It is all part of the Copilot integration into D365. So what's going to happen now is I'm actually going to jump into Dynamics and give you a bit of a demo. So I'll just get that going. And we're going to look at, in Dynamics, we've got our demo system here that we're going to run through. And a couple of things I'm going to do first is we're going to go into our new supply risk assessment form that you will see here. And I've been building some data into D365 because I don't like using the demo data that they provide. So this is actual data that I've created through sales, purchase orders, and sales orders and such. And you'll see here, this is my new supply chain risk assessment form. And you can see I've got items here that are on time and in full, okay, but they're not. So products not on time and in full. And then I've also got my vendors not on time and in full. And you can see here, and I've also got, I can show what I'm getting 100% confirmation requested. So I'm getting that received from my suppliers. And I've got my delivery times here, what's not been on time and so on. And we're actually going to run through a quick demo of this and how it actually influences your data. I'm going to jump into my purchase order, and I've got a purchase order here that I've created, and I've actually got a requested ship date of the 15th to the 11th. There's my item. It is a confirmed purchase order, so I've actually confirmed it. And from here, I'm going to pick up my mobile device and I'm going to receive the order. And I'm just going to put this up here. My item. Normally you would just scan this item. Okay, there's my item, and I'm going to receive a quantity of 5. This is using the mobile device, the warehouse mobile device. So I'm going to go okay. Now that will print out a label, and you'll see I've got a label that'll be similar to what it will print out right here. So it will have printed out a SCC label straight out of D365 like that. And this is all native to D365. Now, if I now look at my order, and I've now registered the item as being received, but I'm now going to jump in and I'm actually going to post my product receipt for the item. And before I do that, I will just demonstrate that we have actually got the item in the system as being registered. And you can see here's my registered item. That's what I've just received. And it's even allocated a license plate. So I'm just going to go back here now, and I'm going to post my product receipt. Now, when I post my product receipt, this is what determines whether the item was received on time or not, because even though I've registered the item into my system, that's not going to adjust my my real-time visibility. It's just going to say that I've registered the product. But in here, if you're doing your product receipt straight away after receiving it, it will show that you have actually received it on the date that you expected. But I'm going to put in here that I received it, to post my product receipt on the 18th, and go okay. Oh, I have to give it a number. Now, what I'm going to do after it's done this product receipt is I'm then going to invoice it. And just before I do that, we can see what this is looking like here now. And we'll go back and I'll just invoice this receipt. And I'm going to change my receipt date to the 15th as well. Okay, and I'm just going to do my status matching and post it. So that's all now completed and invoiced. I'm going to go back here and I'm going to refresh my screen, and we will see these values will disappear, will change. You can see here now it's just updated my not in full and my in full delivery. In full delivery, I've got a 58%, but my items were not on time. So if I refresh these screens here, you'll see that these have now changed, and they're showing that these are not on time. And I also have a performance view, which is now Power BI, where I can actually drill into the items and have a better view of what's actually going on. And it gives me quite a bit of detail as to what's going on with my products and the supply. I can look at this, and I can also I can drill into different entities and look at my entities and select which one. I can look at products ranking, which are my better supplying products, and my on time in full analysis of my products. And then I also have a risk screen where I can actually view my risk. And it will show me what items are at risk and how my production lines can be at risk due to late supply of product and companies that are poor performing. So this is all a new function within D365, the new risk assessment screen. So I'm now going to hand over to Mark, and any questions around this, feel free to reach out.
Thanks for joining me today as part of the Dynamics 365 for Assets, Equipment, Transport and Infrastructure webinar. My name's Mark, and I'll just be talking a little bit around Microsoft 365 security and how that can apply to your industry. Just going to touch a little bit on Copilot first. Troy and Nathan have covered it in their presentations, but I just wanted to give a high-level overview of what it looks like in the Microsoft 365 space. As Troy mentioned earlier, it does work with those three aspects on the screen. So it's the natural language or the large language models where we can interact with Copilot using everyday speech and language. It also consists of Microsoft Graph, which are Microsoft 365 services such as SharePoint Online, Teams, OneDrive, Exchange, and all the other features in the productivity and collaboration platform. Lastly, it also uses and recognizes the Microsoft 365 apps. So that could be the enterprise or business apps in the organization, which is your traditional Office software. Just some benefits about Copilot, and I know some examples have been shown today with field service, but we can use it in everyday computing through Word, Excel and PowerPoint. So with Word, we could use it to create draft documents. In Excel, we could visualize data or maybe look for trends in a spreadsheet. And from a PowerPoint point of view, we can create presentations just by telling Copilot some simple words. A great example could have been today, generate me a presentation around Microsoft 365 for assets and industry. From a productivity point of view, we did see with field service, it interacts with email, so it can have a look at emails. It could create automatic cases within field service, but as an everyday user, we could use it for managing our inbox, summarizing what emails might be important to us, what we need to respond to. And from a Teams perspective, we can use it for summarizing meetings. So action items, who said what, really just summarizing those meetings for follow-up and action. From a requirements point of view, licensing, so Copilot for Microsoft 365 does require Microsoft 365 Business Premium if you're under 300 seats, or otherwise E3 and E5 licensing if you are in the enterprise space. From a connectivity point of view, it does rely on the internet, so we do need connections up into Azure for the AI and machine learning capabilities, and we also need connectivity up into our Microsoft 365 services such as SharePoint or Teams. From an application perspective, we do need the latest version of Microsoft 365 apps for enterprise or business. So we can't use anything like Office 2013, 2016 or 2019. So we do need to be on that current channel or monthly enterprise channel. And probably the most important part, the last point on the slide there, is around data governance. So Copilot will actually have access to whatever the user using Copilot has access to. So it's very important that we do have the right permissions in place, we have the right governance, and if we do have access to sensitive information, we need to be careful that we aren't oversharing anything. So a good example might be using Copilot to generate a report or a PowerPoint, and we find that the user might have access to sensitive information that shouldn't be released to the public. Copilot could actually go and look at that data, extrapolate it, put it into a report, and the user might unwillingly share it when maybe it shouldn't have been shared. So using sensitivity labels or information protection can help with that governance and make sure that Copilot doesn't have access to anything that might be deemed sensitive in the organization. Next, I'm just going to touch on some security framework around the Essential 8 and how E3 and E5 with Microsoft 365 can help support your organization reach maturity level 3. For those that aren't familiar, the Essential 8 consists of 3 maturity levels, 1, 2, and 3. We also have a 4th level, which is actually maturity level 0, which means we do have significant weaknesses in the organization. What we do want to see in terms of controls is moving from left to right. So each area, or the 8 controls of the essential 8, all have different recommendations and mitigation strategies. So we want to ensure that we at least start with maturity level 1, and then as we want to increase our cybersecurity posture, we move all the way up to maturity level 3. From the 8 controls, I'll touch on the top 4 today in a bit more detail, but the 4 that we can see on the screen here, we have application control, which is ensuring that users can only execute and open applications that are relevant and approved or sanctioned. We don't want them opening up any applications that might not be sanctioned or could be malicious and have vulnerabilities. So we want to really control what can be done. From an application patching point of view, we want to make sure we are mitigating risks and exposure by ensuring that those third-party applications are constantly kept up to date. And these are the sorts of applications like Adobe Reader, previously might have been Java, lots of those applications that hackers are finding vulnerabilities in, and we want to make sure that these are addressed to really reduce that attack surface reduction. Macros in the finance world and D365 world, we'll probably have a lot of users that would still be using macros within the organization. So the best practice here is really to make sure we have macros disabled or not in use for those users that don't need it. And for those that do need it, we want to make sure that is controlled and locked down. Number 4, user application hardening. So we want to restrict the use of Internet Explorer 11 because of the vulnerabilities there. It's an unsupported web browser. We want to move users onto Microsoft Edge in the Microsoft space. And also things such as web advertising, we want to ensure that's blocked, which we can do natively with Microsoft Edge and some browser add-ons. Number 5 there, restricting admin privileges is very important. We want to make sure that standard users and privileged users, or the rights that they have, are segregated. We don't want an everyday user that has access to email, also being an administrator of a system. So we want to have that segregation of roles and that least privileged access. Number 6, patching operating systems. Much like patching applications, we want to make sure that our operating systems on Windows client devices, also in servers, are kept up to date. So Microsoft actually release these updates once a month. So we want to make sure we are patching our systems. Obviously, we'd have piloting and change control. We want to ensure that these are at least patched within a 2-week period if possible. Number 7, multi-factor authentication. It's everyone's favorite topic, and many years ago it was very in your face. So we would have an approved deny. We had very little control over when an MFA prompt would occur for a user. That led to frustration, and then the user adoption of MFA became really difficult in an organization. So Microsoft recognized this, and they've also got a product as part of Entra ID, which is the identity security platform for Microsoft that is used across Microsoft 365 and Dynamics 365. So conditional access takes into account who the user is, what device they're coming from, the location, and also the application that they're trying to access. It will use those signals and make an informed decision whether to grant access to that application or block access. And the last point there are regular backups. It's obviously important that we need to make sure we've got that resiliency, business continuity in case there is an issue, or maybe we've had a SharePoint document library has been encrypted, so we might need to restore that. So Microsoft don't actually have anything out of the box in this space at the moment. There is something coming next year in 2024, but we do leverage third-party vendors in this space, such as AvePoint. And AvePoint, great partner of ours at Fusion 5. We use their products across our customers. So Cloud Backup for Microsoft 365 will protect all of our standard workloads, such as Exchange, SharePoint, Teams, and OneDrive. It will also leverage out to the Dynamics 365 platform, the Power Platform as well, and even into some of the Azure services. So it's a very comprehensive product that can support the whole Microsoft stack. This is a very busy slide. Apologies in advance. So this is Microsoft 365 E3 as an overview. And as we can see on the left-hand side here, we have our traditional productivity and collaboration products within Microsoft 365, so Teams, Outlook, etc. In the middle, we have what's called enterprise mobility and security. These are the features here that really provide that identity protection and device management for users. So if we do have mobile technicians out in the field using tablets or Windows laptops, we have a way to actually manage those devices. As I said, we can make sure the operating systems are kept up to date, applications are patched. We do have some of those security controls in place, to really protect that user, their device, and more importantly, your company's sensitive information. Next, we have Microsoft E5. So this is the step up from an E3. So typical for an organization that might not want to use all of the E5 features, and some of these are up the top here, including things like Power BI Pro or Teams calling. If you are very conscious about security and you do want to take that next step, we do have what's called the E5 security add-on, which is down the bottom, across the bottom row here. So what this does is adds on advanced protection for endpoints through Defender for Endpoint Plan 2. This also includes vulnerability management, which I'll show a quick demo on towards the end of this presentation. But some of the advanced identity features it does provide is that privileged identity management. So giving that just-in-time access to users to elevate to a privileged role when they need it. A good example might be a security administrator or maybe even a Power Platform Dynamics administrator, where they need to elevate to make a change in the system. We want to make sure that their account does not have permanent rights assigned. It is that just-in-time access. And then on the left here, we have productivity and collaboration protection with Defender for Office 365 Plan 2. So this will provide that advanced protection in email and Teams, things such as safe documents as well, which will allow us to open documents in a sandboxed environment and check them for any exploits, prior to editing. On the left here, we also have something called the Sentinel benefit that I'll talk about later, but this is a fantastic offering for E5 security and E5, which allows us to leverage Microsoft Sentinel and ingest some extra logs into that platform. As I mentioned, I'll just quickly touch on the top 4 controls. So application control is very important. So we want to make sure we are restricting what applications and services that users can open on their devices. We don't want malicious or unsanctioned applications from being launched. We can achieve maturity level 3 with this control using Microsoft E3 and E5. So in terms of a product set, we have Microsoft Defender, Microsoft Intune, and Windows Pro and Enterprise that can help allow us to meet ML3 in this space. From an application patching point of view, Microsoft Defender will provide us the visibility into weaknesses and vulnerabilities across applications on our devices. And we can use Microsoft Intune to help patch things such as Microsoft Edge, Microsoft 365 apps for business and enterprise. And then we can even use things such as Patch My PC, which is a third-party vendor that can help us manage all of those common third-party applications such as Adobe Reader, VLC Media Player, and they're the applications that are commonly targeted and have exploits available. So very, very important to make sure they're kept up to date, and they should be patched within 48 hours for a critical vulnerability. From an operating system point of view, Microsoft Intune can provide us management through Windows Update for Business. So this will support Windows 10 and Windows 11 devices in the organization. If we do want to have visibility over our servers or on-premises devices, we can leverage Microsoft Endpoint Configuration Manager, which is formerly known as SCCM. And we can have that holistic view across both our client and server operating systems. That Microsoft Defender for Endpoint, as I mentioned earlier, will provide us that visibility into weaknesses and vulnerabilities and give us more insight around what we might need to prioritize. And again, like I mentioned with applications, anything that's critical or exploitable should be patched within a 48-hour period. Anything else that's not so critical or exploitable can be patched within a 2-week period under maturity level 3. The last one of the top 4 is restricting admin privileges. So as I touched on before, we should always have just-in-time access and use privileged identity management. So we don't want users to have permanently elevated rights. They should only elevate their rights when and where they need to perform an administrative task. We do have App Blocker that does help restrict access as well to web browsers and internet access under an admin account. And then we can even use things such as privileged access workstation, or PAWS as they're known, to provide access for administrators in a controlled environment, when making critical changes in the environment. So we can leverage other services in that Microsoft 365 ecosystem, including Azure Virtual Desktop, Windows 365, or even Citrix running on Microsoft Azure as well. And importantly, with admin privileges, all of this is logged through Entra and Defender for Identity. So we do have visibility of, changes and what might be happening in the environment. And then we can leverage Microsoft Sentinel to provide us alerting and reporting on any changes and anything that might be malicious or potentially an attack in the organization. I thought I'd just quickly touch on DP World. So DP World, as most people would have seen in the media in the last few weeks, were exploited by Russian hackers. It looks like it was a Citrix vulnerability due to an unpatched Citrix system. Again, highlighting why the Essential 8 is there, to protect against this sort of thing from happening. So what this meant for DP World, and I guess for Australia in whole, was that 40% of the country's import-export capacity was crippled, with 30,000 stranded containers that couldn't be delivered, with trucks because of the shutdown of the IT systems. It's still unconfirmed at this stage whether or not it was a customer information that might have been breached or employee information that might have been breached. So, very interesting to see in the media, and again highlights why we need to ensure systems are patched. So if we had Defender XDR in place, we could have actually seen that we had a vulnerability in Citrix through the connectors in Defender. So it does provide that unified dashboard, so we can see across all of our endpoint, IoT, identities, applications. We do have that unified view about what's happening, in our Microsoft ecosystem. It'll also integrate into Security Copilot, so that's currently in sort of preview or early release at the moment. But what this will allow organisations to do is have low-level analysts or help desk staff actually hunting for queries using natural language. So I could type in and say, show me all unauthorised or failed logins in the last 24 hours, and I can easily type in queries, bring back responses that's easy for someone without that real deep technical expertise, to understand. We can also use it to summarize reports or incidents. So we might have an incident and say, please summarize this incident report, and then we can, use Copilot again to generate a PowerPoint out of it to provide back to, the board or management. The third point there, E5 Sentinel benefit, as I touched on earlier, Microsoft Sentinel is Microsoft's security information event management system, a bit of a mouthful, SIEM. So what this will do is correlate all the logs from all of the different services in Microsoft 365, Entra, can even integrate it into Dynamics 365 as well. And the Sentinel benefit with E5 will actually give you an allowance of 5 meg per day per user of Entra ID sign-in logs, also Defender for cloud apps to look for things such as shadow IT, and also Purview for information protection. So we can see when users might be looking at sensitive data with sensitivity labels as well. And more recently, we do have IoT included as well. So that will give you 5 IoT device licenses per licensed E5 user. So in the earlier example, we had Nathan talking about HVAC systems, or you might have warehousing systems where you do have IoT that's connected on the network. So we can get visibility into those devices as well to see if there are any weaknesses or vulnerabilities. Just going to quickly show you the Microsoft Defender vulnerability management dashboard and some of the, I guess, features we can leverage out of it in terms of understanding weaknesses in the system. So under the dashboard, we can see some top recommendations. At the top here, we can see our score across the environment for, how mature our cybersecurity posture might be across these categories. There's also an exposure score here that we can see in terms of, how much are we at risk in terms of, exploits or vulnerabilities in the organisation. We can drill down into weaknesses. So weaknesses will show us all of our CVEs or common vulnerabilities and exposure, which are ranked with a score, CVSS. The higher the number, the more critical it is to remediate. So we can see at a higher level here all of our devices and exposure. There's a couple of examples in the list here with IoT devices, with Moxa devices that might be on the network that might have unpatched firmware that could be exfiltrated. And we actually have seen this as an attack point. Even printers, hackers have gotten into printers before, found an exploit, and then gained access, to a customer's network, and then used lateral movement to go across and start trying to get access into other systems. We can easily see a summary of security recommendations in the organisation as well. So we can click in, drill down, we can use filters as well. So I've got a filter here that's looking at exploitable, critical vulnerabilities. I can then also click in, drill down further. So in this example, I've got a Windows Server 2019 operating system vulnerability because I've got Defender for Endpoint deployed across my client and server devices. So once we are inside this vulnerability, we can then drill down further and actually see what devices in my organisation might be exposed. And I can see here I've got a domain controller, which is fairly critical to running my environment. So I want to make sure that that is patched as soon as possible. So again, I can drill down into that device, and then I can see a high-level summary of all of the weaknesses and vulnerabilities. I can drill down, click in, and see what might need to be addressed from a critical point of view. So might be some patching that needs to be done, so we can prioritise that. And that's it from me. Thanks very much.
Thank you very much, Mark. So I think we've come to the end of our webinar there. We've just got a couple of questions from the audience that'll just take a minute or two there, but I might pick on you first, Nathan. So can this add external technicians, contractors with regards to your presentation?
So yes, it can. In fact, the resources that I was scheduling in my demonstration were actually external. So that they were external resources just because it's easier for me in my demo environment. They're adding real users. The only limitation is that the mobile app requires a full user account to be able to do that. They could be an external contractor, but you'll need to then bring them in as a user to the environment. Otherwise, we can use automation that if I'm sending it out to an external resource, that we might generate a nicely formatted email with all of the service job information and where they need to go to. And once they're done, they'll let us know and we can update what happened on that as well. So the answer is yes, but there's a bit of nuance to how you deliver that in terms of the full fidelity experience of field service to those users.
Thanks, mate. And so I've got so D365 Field Service is for maintenance services. You sell external to your company, and D365 F&O is for maintenance of your own assets internal to your company. Can you clarify, Nathan?
Yeah, I'm not sure if we still have the Dynamo guys on the call. I think they might have dropped off. There is a bit of overlap, and I think that if you and Tom, you might be able to weigh in on this as well. So D365 Field Service is not a full asset lifecycle and management platform, though it certainly offers some overlap to that. So if you're not already on F&O, and certainly if you are servicing external customers, then absolutely it would make sense that D365 Field Service, what I showed you, would be the right solution. If you're on F&O and you're looking to service internal assets or possibly external, then that Dynaway solution may also provide those functionalities. So I think the sort of devil's in the detail of understanding about exactly what you're trying to solve as to which solution is the best one for you. And Tom, I'm not sure if you wanted to just add any clarifying points around what was shown with Dynaway versus mine.
You're quite right. You're quite right in what you're saying.
Fantastic. Thanks, Tom.
Perfect. And I've just got one final one here. So we aren't using D365 at the moment, though. If we do not have expertise in certain maintenance jobs and want to reach out to external vendors to send a technician on site, does it have the capabilities to send requests to the vendors and schedule according to their response?
So similar to before when we're using externals, so absolutely yes, we can send jobs out to external vendors. The question mark there would be, can it automatically factor in what they write back? So if you say, hey, can you attend this week when? If they write back and say Wednesday 10 a.m, to have the system entirely automatically interpret that correctly, book the right resource might be a stretch at the moment, but certainly using the Copilot in Outlook to pick up that conversational thread and make a booking, it would likely help you on that journey. And that's just going to get better as the system evolves. Everything we've shown today around Copilot, I know we've drummed on about it a lot today, but everything's at version 1 basically. It is brand new tech going live with Microsoft. We're all very excited to see what happens in version 2, 3, 4 and beyond.
Nice one. All right, well, I think we can wrap up there. I'm going to share a recording of this presentation for those who have attended and those who couldn't make it today. And in addition, I'll run a report on our attendees. And for those that were in the first 50 who registered and attended today, I'll send you out an Uber Eats voucher a bit later today so you can have some lunch on us. A very sincere thank you for attending. I hope you got some value out of it. And we're almost at the time where I can say have a lovely Christian New Year, I think. I haven't got my Christmas tree up, but I can wish you that. All the best, guys. Thank you very much for attending, and we'll see you in the next event. Cheers.
Guys, bye-bye.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.